Literally, SpongeBob is peak comfort TV. Absurd, innocent, timeless. And Rockabye Bivalve? It seems like one of the most wholesome episodes of the series.
Since this scallop doesn't have parents, we should raise it ourselves.
Ask any millennial. They will remember this episode fondly. But apparently not everyone was having fun. To some parents, this episode crossed a line, or 3. And look, you can laugh that off, say it's just parents overreacting, but dig a little deeper and you start to realize this episode rubbed people the wrong way, and not just because SpongeBob wears curlers.
Let's have another. I don't need this.
Aw, don't cry.
Was it the fake family setup, the gender confusion, the emotional pressure, or was it something much more personal? But the real question isn't what's wrong with this episode, it's why did this episode trigger some parents? The story starts with SpongeBob and Patrick finding a baby clam abandoned in the street.
I'll take care of this.
No, not that kind of taking care of it. They decide to raise it, like a child. They bring it into SpongeBob's house, build it a crib, get it diapers, and try to feed it. Now, for starters, this episode has a really solid message for kids. SpongeBob and Patrick taking care of something small and helpless, that's something kids can relate to. It's like getting your first pet or looking after a younger sibling. It teaches empathy, responsibility, maybe even basic caregiving. Just the wholesome stuff. Unfortunately, they decide to commit further by being a couple.
We should raise it ourselves.
Oh, I want to be the mom. Just call me daddy.
And suddenly, we're not just watching a babysitting bit, we're watching a full-on sitcom family parody. In fact, the next scenes are full-on sitcom parenting montages. Picnics in the park, bathing in the fountain, ice cream dates, even cycling circus. It's all played for laughs, and for a lot of kids, that's how it landed. But for some parents, this is where they checked out. Lots of them questioned why the episode decided to go this way, instead of having them just raise Junior as friends. But let's pause, because I think the show isn't really making a big statement, at least not about relationships or family structure. It's simply a parody, a play on traditional gender roles just with a sponge and a starfish. You've got the mom staying home, you've got the dad going to work. In fact, some people see it as progressive. A weird cartoony glimpse of a non-nuclear family actually working together, and for the first few minutes, it does work. Except, the episode also sends a message that functional family isn't always about rainbows and sunshine, and they're gonna have a lot of problems in the near future. Something which parents think kids aren't ready to see, because once Patrick goes to work, SpongeBob starts to fall apart.
Patrick?
I'll get to it eventually.
As the episode goes on, the joke stops being they're playing house and becomes SpongeBob overwhelmed and Patrick doing nothing. He comes home, flops into the chair, and watches TV every single day. This is where the humor cuts too close. And that's the thing. Even if this was just supposed to be a joke, the joke never flips. To make it worse, the second half of the episode shifts into something darker. SpongeBob finally snaps.
Patrick Star, we need to talk.
Just one more minute. I got
Don't
it.
1 more minute me, Mr. Man.
He confronts Patrick, starts an argument, tells Patrick that he's done nothing, shows him just how many diapers he's had to change alone, and Patrick, for once, actually breaks down. Even goes as far as saying,
What kind of father am I?
it's a surprisingly emotional beat. He promises to do better, to be super dad.
Great, so I'll see you at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
It's a heavy moment, heavier than anything else the episode's done. And you think, for a second, maybe this is where it turns around. But no. Patrick stumbles in late that night, giggling, with a lampshade on his head.
Oh boy, that was some party. Oh, hey, SpongeBob.
His briefcase is full of desserts because his job is literally sitting in his house watching TV. So they argue again, more intense this time.
So, this is work?
You know, it's not as easy as it looks. Sometimes I lose the remote.
Some parents watching this didn't see a parody anymore. They saw a dysfunctional relationship being played out in bright cartoon colors. And that's when it really escalates. Junior the Clam crawls to the windowsill and jumps. SpongeBob and Patrick scream, panic, chase after him. It's framed like a finale twist. But think about what you're watching. A baby, abandoned, tries to jump out the window in desperation because the people raising him were too busy yelling. And for a split second, SpongeBob and Patrick actually fail as parents. Now, of course, Junior survives. He learns to fly. It's a happy ending, sort of. He gives SpongeBob and Patrick a goodbye kiss and flutters away into the sky.
Let's have another.
But what really lingers isn't the ending, it's what came before it. The argument, the exhaustion, the broken promises, the desperation. About what happens when two people try to play house and completely fail to show up for each other. It's tempting to write this off as just another weird SpongeBob episode. But Rockabye Bivalve didn't just raise eyebrows in 2002, it still sparks debates today. It was a perfect storm of misunderstandings, subtext, and uncomfortable truth. But what exactly made it so uncomfortable? Let's just say it flat out. The idea that SpongeBob and Patrick were acting like a married couple, it made some parents uncomfortable. You see it in comments like, "Alright, I don't mind the episode, but gayness isn't cool." Or, "Nah, I think they should edit out the gayness instead." And honestly, some people were just never going to be okay with it. Doesn't matter that it was a parody or a joke. Two male characters playing house triggered a knee-jerk reaction, especially in the early 2000s. Remember, this was years before mainstream kids media even hinted at queer parenting. Shows like Blue's Clues or Arthur introducing gay couples caused national backlash as late as 2019. So seeing SpongeBob and Patrick take on mom and dad roles, even jokingly, felt like crossing a line to some households. But here's the irony. The episode never makes a big deal about gender or labels. There's no romantic subplot, no agenda, just two best friends overwhelmed by a crying clam. The discomfort never really comes from the show, it was coming from the viewers. Meanwhile, the second controversy is subtler, but just as real. Patrick's role. Because when you watch this episode as a kid, you just think he's lazy. But if you've ever been in SpongeBob's shoes, if you've been the parent who stays up all night, handles every mess, keeps the house afloat while somebody else goes to work and checks out, it's a gut punch. Some people still get mad at Patrick these days. I'm not exaggerating. Even though the show is obviously playing this for comedy, the structure of the joke reinforces a very old, very real gendered trope. The selfless mother versus the useless father. And while some parents appreciated the emotional moment where Patrick finally apologizes, that moment doesn't last. He goes right back to being useless. The show never really gives SpongeBob justice. Patrick never fully owns his failure, and that imbalance never evens out. So for a lot of adult viewers, this episode stopped feeling like satire and started looking like a reflection, one they didn't want their kids laughing at. And then we hit the final twist, the moment Junior tries to jump out the window. Let's sit with that for a second. Junior, this tiny, helpless scallop, climbs up, chirps for help, and dives. SpongeBob and Patrick scream, panic, and run. It's shot like a drama. The score swells, the tension's real. And yeah, Junior ends up flying, happy ending. But some people just couldn't shake it. It wasn't just cartoon logic, it was emotionally charged. And for some parents, way too heavy. Now here's where things get interesting. Because once you start looking at how this episode was structured, the parenting tropes, the breakdown, the guilt, the fake work versus real labor, you start to wonder, what did the creators of SpongeBob actually intend here? Was this supposed to be sweet and satirical? Or did they just accidentally write the most emotionally real episode in the show's history? Rockabye Bivalve plays like a shot-for-shot parody of a traditional sitcom baby episode. You've seen it before, especially if you grew up watching early 90s sitcoms. A couple finds a baby, one gets overwhelmed, they fight, baby ends up okay, cue emotional lesson. It's straight out of Full House, Fresh Prince, even The Simpsons. The "let's have another one" punchline at the end? That's a classic sitcom closer, and kind of disturbing in context. So clearly, Nickelodeon was tapping into those tropes, but here's what makes it uniquely SpongeBob. They didn't resolve anything. Patrick never truly changes, SpongeBob never really gets justice, and the baby literally escapes out the window. That's not your typical sitcom arc, but here's something most people forget. SpongeBob's creator Steven Hillenburg had one rule that guided the early seasons. SpongeBob is like a kid, or more accurately, a weird man-child, but his heart is always in the right place. So when SpongeBob takes on the role of mom here, he's not doing it to push a political point. He's doing it because he genuinely cares about Junior. That's what makes this episode work, and also what makes it uncomfortable. SpongeBob is sincere, Patrick is being Patrick. And the show doesn't sugarcoat that. It's not an accident, it's a choice. So maybe the better question isn't, what were they trying to say? It's, why did it land this way? Because satire only works when the audience recognizes the exaggeration. And for some people, that didn't feel exaggerated at all. It felt like their real lives. And that's where Rockabye Bivalve crossed a boundary. It blurred the line between cartoon logic and lived experience. With that being said, even with all the controversy, even with all the discomfort, this episode still sticks with people. Some call it their favorite. Some say it taught them more than school ever did about relationships, parenting, or empathy. Others? They never want to watch it again. And that's kind of incredible. For a show about a sponge that flips burgers underwater, this episode had weight, maybe more than it was meant to. So, did Rockabye Bivalve cross a line? That depends on what you expect from SpongeBob. If you're looking for zany underwater nonsense, a baby scallop nearly jumping to its death might feel like a step too far. Two best friends playing dysfunctional marriage? Maybe that's weird to explain. But if you're looking for something a little more layered, this episode doesn't just work, it resonates. It's not pushing an agenda, it's not trying to make some grand statement about family, it's just SpongeBob and Patrick doing what they always do, getting way too into whatever weird role they've assigned themselves this week.
Let's have another.
It's absurd, it's uncomfortable, it's strangely touching. And maybe that's why it stuck with people long after it aired. The hate this episode got wasn't really about the content, it was about context. About parents seeing something they weren't ready to explain. About adults projecting real anxieties onto a sponge in a wig and a starfish in a tie. And maybe that means this episode did something right. But you know, this wasn't the only time SpongeBob pushed things further than people expected. Sometimes SpongeBob went too far and it had to be cut completely. And that is the story we told in our last video, where we went scene by scene through every banned moment from SpongeBob's history. If you thought this episode was too much, wait till you see what didn't make it to air.